here to do the devil's work.
Welcome everybody to my month of horror here on the channel, giving you a new horror movie review every Friday of the month, and I thought I'd start things off with a really fun one. Back in the early 90s, two upcoming filmmakers were proving themselves worthy within the eyes of both critics and fans alike. Quentin Tarantino, who broke onto the scene with Reservoir Dogs in 1992 and then followed it up with Pulp Fiction in 1994, a film that has gone down in history as one of the most iconic pieces of cinema to come out of the 90s and was nominated for 7 Academy Awards and even won for Best Screenplay. Simultaneously, Robert Rodriguez's debut film, El Mariachi, was a crowning achievement for low-budget indie filmmaking, making an action movie for a mere $7,000 and doing just about all of the technical behind-the-scenes stuff all by himself, and following that up with a higher-budget sequel called Desperado that starred Antonio Banderas. So what happens when these two filmmakers combine their talents and decide to make a movie together? What kind of experience are you going to get with these intuitive, young, aspiring, gifted, talented, award-winning movie makers clashing together at the height of their booming careers? Well, obviously, it's a vampire movie that takes place inside of a titty bar.
We might be in trouble. We got a bunch of fucking vampires out there trying to get in here and suck our fucking blood.
Yes, From Dusk Till Dawn from 1996, the vampire movie thriller that Tarantino actually wrote with the screenplay, and it was during the stage of his career where he was also taking on acting roles, so he's in the movie as well. He plays a character named Richie, and just so that we're all aware, Tarantino plays the role of a character in the film who gets to suck alcohol off of Salma Hayek's toes. Yeah, I think we all know why he wanted to be in the movie. And you know what? I can't even blame him, so, good on him. Robert Rodriguez directs the film, which does make more sense because he had more experience with making action sequences at the time. The premise is about two brothers, Seth and Richie Gecko, who are hardened criminals who just stole a shit ton of money and are trying to get to Mexico in order to escape the authorities. On the way there, they kidnap a family to take as hostages and then take them on their journey to get to the rendezvous location, which just so happens to be filled with menacing monsters of the undead variety. The movie opens at a liquor store featuring a sheriff character walking in named Earl McGraw, played by Michael Parks. Interestingly enough, both Tarantino and Rodriguez would use this character in multiple films after this. He shows up in Kill Bill and in Death Proof in Tarantino's movies, and he shows up in Planet Terror, created by Robert Rodriguez. Trying to put them into any kind of canon, though, gets very confusing because in Planet Terror, the world gets overrun with zombies and causes an apocalypse. And the reason that can't work is because that would have to happen before From Dusk Till Dawn, but in the opening of From Dusk Till Dawn, Earl gets his head blown off. It gets even more confusing when you watch Planet Terror and Death Proof side by side as they were meant to be seen in Grindhouse because they both use Earl McGraw and they both seem to take place in the same universe, and you know what? Figuring this out is a discussion for another time. It doesn't really matter. He gets shot. The important thing is we are introduced to Seth, played by George Clooney, and Richie, played by Tarantino, seeing the difference in how the brothers operate. Seth is more calm and collected, and Richie is more of a psychopath, killing the sheriff for no real reason other than just the suspicion that they were being noticed. He even then shoots the liquor store owner who was only helping them out in the situation. But he soon retaliates, shooting a hole through Richie's hand, which ignites an entire shootout that opens the movie. Even funnier when you find out the only reason Seth and Richie came into the store was just to buy a road map. And there's no CGI here. They literally had George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino walk out of this set and then blew it up behind them. The kind of thing that you only get one take for, and it worked out great. But the opening sets up the dynamic between the two of them really well. Seth loves his brother more than anything, but also recognizes that he needs to be kept in check because he does fly off the handle. A perfect example of this is the first hostage that they have. It's an older woman who is obviously scared shitless by them, and when Seth leaves Richie and her in a hotel room together, when he returns, Richie acts like nothing is wrong, but he has actually murdered her and claimed it was because she tried to escape. The scene where Seth finds the body is actually really effective and scary in its own way. The camera slowly pans in on Seth, and we only see flashes of the dead body on screen for barely a second. Oh, it's also confirmed that Richie is a sexual predator, so it could have been implied here that he also raped her. Seth tries to scold him about this and remind him who's in charge, but the movie has barely gotten going, and we already know that Richie is going to be a major problem. So now they need different hostages, and enter our main family of characters. Jacob, that's played by Harvey Keitel, and his two kids, Kate and Scott. Jacob is a former pastor questioning his faith after the death of his wife, and unfortunately for him and his kids, they're driving a big RV that would be perfect for smuggling a couple of criminals across the border. So Seth and Richie jump them, do their thing, and intimidate them into compliance. Jacob does what he can, but ultimately he does have to submit to them. Now, you might be thinking, didn't you say this was a vampire movie? Yeah, well, it takes a while, and in a way, that's kind of what's great about this movie. No vampires reveal themselves until an hour into the film. The first half is just about these criminals and their hostages. If you didn't know any better, you would legitimately think this is just a suspense drama about survival. And the shock and surprise when it all of a sudden turns into a horror film can make or break this entire movie depending on how you want to watch it. Some people love it, some people become so invested in the realistic plotline that they don't like it, but I love it because it's like the characters themselves don't even know that they're in a horror movie. Or, better than that, Seth and Richie see themselves as being so in control of all these dangerous situations, maybe what you would consider the actual horror. So throwing these two types of characters suddenly into a situation where they become the prey is a fun bait and switch to pull after you've already established them and their dynamic of being capable of getting out of any situation by intimidating people or by violence. So it puts them into just about the only situation you can imagine that they would not be prepared for. Eventually, they do get across the border into Mexico and are supposed to wait at a location for the guys that will get them to Sanctuary, a town called El Rey that is supposed to be like a paradise for lowlives. The location chosen is a huge bar out in the middle of nowhere called the Titty Twister.
Here at the Titty Twister, we're slashing pussy in half. We got smelly pussy, we got hairy pussy, bloody pussy, we got snapping pussy.
It's filled with truckers, bikers, alcohol, live music, naked women, and Cheech Marin talking about pussy.
Horse pussy, dog pussy, chicken pussy, come on, you want pussy, come on in, pussy lover.
Fun fact, Cheech Marin actually plays 3 different roles in this movie. He's the border patrol officer, he's a vampire in the bar, and he's also the guy that Seth is supposed to meet up with in the next morning. Yeah. The group all get to a table and witness the insane party vibes of this bar. I would show you more, but there's a lot of nudity, so you'll just have to take my word for it. But hey, look, Danny Trejo. That guy's a badass. We also get introduced to some other characters in the bar that'll become important. Fred Williamson plays a guy named Frost smoking a cigar. And the best introduction ever is Tom Savini as a character that is named Sex Machine. Yes. And he showcases the greatest weapon perhaps ever put to screen, the cock gun. Soon the lights fade and attention is brought to the main stage. A band plays as we witness Salma Hayek as Santanico Pandemonium, a sexy, entrancing dance with a snake around her. And dear God, remembering what Salma Hayek looked like in the 90s, you guys, it just makes me feel some type of way. But I won't dwell on that too much. I think all they told Salma Hayek to be in this movie is just to show up and be hot. And that's what she does. Also, I really like how she seems to single out Richie. Okay, I know, yeah, the toe-sucking stuff, but story-wise, in universe, I like that Richie is a predator and that this works as kind of like a role reversal. Since Santanico is actually a vampire, it's almost as if she senses this and makes the predator the prey, kind of hypnotizing him in this moment. But then, thanks to their behavior on the way into the bar, a few guys start to throw them out, and when Richie begins to fight back, they stab his hand to the table, and then another shootout begins. However, this time, everybody that Seth and Richie shoot get back up. And the blood from Richie's hand makes, well, this happen. So now, 1 hour into the film, everything changes. Out of goddamn nowhere, Santanico transforms into this snake bitch thing. I don't know. She bites Richie. Blood spurts everywhere, which calls the other vampires into action. They lock the doors. Everyone transforms, and it just becomes a fucking bloodbath free-for-all. I cannot imagine if you didn't know what this movie was about and then suddenly watching this happen. I would be stunned. What the fuck is going on? But it's amazing. Blood flies everywhere, limbs get ripped off, the cock gun is actually used, vampires are getting staked left and right, there's beheadings, and the whole time, the band keeps playing music, except now they're playing with mutilated body parts as their instruments. Need I say more? The only thing I don't like is how fast some of the specific vampire characters are killed off. Danny Trejo goes out pretty quick, and so does Salma Hayek, which really sucks because I enjoyed her plot line in this movie. The vampires in this movie are also all over the place in terms of strength and abilities, so I don't know if anybody has ever done a lore dive on the vampires in this movie, but it's really all over the place. Some transformations turn them into hideous, grotesque creatures. Others just kind of had the standard 90s vampire face. Salma Hayek's character is like a snake creature. They can all turn into bats, and also once you're bitten, you transform incredibly fast. As well, you seem to turn immediately evil with no real empathy from your human form left over. Richie rises and turns into a vampire, and then Seth is forced to kill him, which leaves only Seth, Jacob, his 2 kids, Frost, and Sex Machine are left alive. They may have killed all the vamps in the bar so far, but the bar is also surrounded by a lot more vampires in bat form just waiting to get in. So during the group huddle, they encourage Jacob to find his faith again because they definitely need it. Also, I find it really funny how Seth treats this situation. He's not really scared or panicked as much as he just seems to be incredibly annoyed by it.
We got a bunch of fucking vampires out there trying to get in here and suck our fucking blood. And that's it, plain and simple.
But unknown to them, Sex Machine was also bitten, and he tries to hide it, but he becomes a vampire and begins attacking the crew, starting with Frost. And Frost just seems to instantly turn into a vampire, and then he breaks the door down, letting all of them inside. Jacob is also bitten, but he doesn't turn right away. I'll just attribute that to his faith, I don't know. Instead, he uses a baseball bat and shotgun to make a cross and blasts a bunch of vampires away, leading down a hallway. And I've always loved this shot going down the hallway. Just something about it looks really cool. The crew do manage to find some weapons, and they carve crosses onto bullets. Jacob blesses water inside balloons. Yes, actual water balloon weapons here. And Seth somehow builds a fucking jackhammer stake thing. I don't know. Listen, by this point in the movie, things don't make sense, and the more they don't make sense, the more sense it makes, so you just go with it and you just enjoy the ride, man. For example, Sex Machine turns into this giant monstrous rat creature. Why does this happen? How does this happen? Nobody fucking knows, but who cares? It's George Clooney, the guy from a bunch of highly respected award-winning films and romantic comedies. Yeah, here he is fighting a rat puppet in a titty bar. It's great. The final battle is as gory and crazy as you'd want it to be. Again, I wish they had kept a singular character alive as a main final boss, but it's still pretty good. Jacob does transform eventually, and then his son is forced to take him out, blowing off half his head with a water balloon, and then shooting him, and for some reason that makes him explode. Also, then the son gets attacked by 5 vampires, and the daughter is forced to kill him, and then he explodes. It's now reached the point in the movie where everyone and everything just explodes. And I'm not even kidding, because the sun starts to come in through holes that they blast in the wall, and the sunlight makes the vampires explode. And it's just like any slight bit of exposure to the sun just makes them explode. It's just explosion after explosion after explosion, and the whole fucking bar explodes. Everything explodes. In the morning, they do meet Cheech's third character, and he asks why the hell they had to meet here, and I just love how Seth just seems so annoyed more than anything else.
They look like psychos? Is that what they look like? They were vampires. Psychos do not explode when sunlight hits them. I don't give a fuck how crazy they are.
Cheech says that he had no idea that there were vampires here, and he just chose the spot because it looked like a cool place to hang out. The spot itself lures in victims with strippers and alcohol and then feeds on them overnight. It's not a bad business move from the vampires, I suppose. But then again, I just assumed all Mexican bars were like this. Seth and Kate are the only survivors, and Seth does give her a bit of the money that he had. What a nice guy. But of course, he can't take her back with him to El Rey, so she's left alone as we pull back and see that the bar itself was basically built from some kind of of ancient temple dating back probably thousands of years. From Dusk Till Dawn is a ridiculous movie. An intense human drama in the first half and a vampire horror extravaganza in the second, all bridged together by Salma Hayek just being hot. It's one of a kind. They did make 2 sequels, but they don't involve the characters Seth or Kate, and Tarantino and Rodriguez didn't really have any involvement in them. There was even a TV series that existed for a little while, but to be honest, I've never seen it, so I don't know if it's any good. I always did want to see a sequel with the Seth character getting to El Rey and seeing what that place is like. Maybe it could have continued some adventures with him. Hell, maybe he would find a mummy there and need to fight it. I don't know. But overall, it's a fun, wild ride, and it's not a masterpiece or anything. It's not nearly the best thing either Tarantino or Rodriguez have ever put out, but it's just so goddamn entertaining. So for the Halloween season, if you want to get a little bit rowdy, go ahead and check out From Dusk Till Dawn. Anyways, thanks for watching this video, guys. Stay tuned because I have several more horror reviews coming out this October on each and every Friday. And on Friday the 13th, I am dropping my massive 6.5-hour Friday the 13th retrospective, reviewing and detailing the entire franchise. So you won't want to miss it. So go ahead and subscribe to stay tuned for that. If you like this vid, give it a like and comment to help it out in the algorithm. Check out the links in the description if you want to support the channel on a deeper level. I have Patreon, channel memberships, merch store, all that fun stuff, Twitter, Instagram. Other than that, guys, hope you guys are having a happy Halloween season, and I'll talk to you next time.